sometimes use this, or very often, I actually use these oracle cards. For example, when I don't know where to go with a dance, so I ask for some guidance to this oracle deck. And so now I'm gonna pull one for this interview. Yeah. So you arrive and you have 1, 2, up. It really goes to up, and really like with like. This piece is actually part of a cycle of several pieces, and in every title there is a word recital. That's a lizard. The piece we're working on now is recital number 3. Somehow this word constitutes some kind of frame for this cycle of pieces. So when you look at what recital is or means or has meant, how we use these words nowadays, and I think this is like maybe since, 19th century or something like that. It's to name actually a performance of music by a single artist or by a small group of musicians. So this format of concert is usually chopped into different pieces. It's not like a one long music piece, but several pieces of music put together. That's somehow the way I worked on the dances of these pieces, making these different dances that can actually, or let's say that could function independently from one another. Of course, in the piece there is a sense of dramaturgy and they are put together in a certain order, but you could also really present them also individually. Then when you look also at what recital used to mean, and also the etymology of the word, there's something that has to do also with storytelling, with reciting a story. And I wanted also these pieces to have that kind of flavor, that there is some sort of storytelling, and maybe a bit more like a kind of epic. Then, of course, the way I understand storytelling, it's maybe not the usual way. I mean, I'm not making dances that narrate something, and I completely believe in the autonomy of dance in relation to language and production of meaning that would be linked to language. So there's not a story to understand, but let's say the dance tells something. Yeah. Then let's just do kind of fist, like, and so that we use that also, because I think you have some other versions that are a bit more. Yes. Yeah. But I would say I don't want to complicate that thing. For me, it's like that's another story when it's the solo. So that we just have this thing is that thing. Barricades and Legacies, Chiron in Aries, recital number 3. So there is this astrological element in the middle of the 3 titles. Chiron is a name for celestial object in our solar system that has been at times classified as a minor planet or a comet or an asteroid. And it's named after this mythological figure called Chiron, the centaur, so half human, half horse. In astrology, Chiron represents the wounded healer. So wherever we have this object in our chart, it represents our deepest wounds and our capacity to heal. So it's Chiron in Aries, because at the moment, for several years, Chiron in the astrological sign Aries. And so Aries represents willpower, desire, also the warrior within us. So Aries is a sign that loves to initiate. So the pieces are not about astrology, but I was interested in having this astrological framework more as a kind of poetic framework, actually, and how dances could actually express aspects of the sign Aries, but also express this aspect of what Chiron means, astrologically speaking, about wounds and healing. There are three important influences in my work, and namely techno, techno music, somatics, and Dominique Bagué. Maybe I start with Dominique Bagué. So Dominique Bagué was a French choreographer who was part of this generation of choreographers that emerged in France at the beginning of the 80s. But he died actually very young, at the very beginning of his 40s, of AIDS. And I saw his work for the first time when I was a baby. I was 19 years old, and it was just a couple of months before he died. And I completely fell in love with his work. And then it turned out that 2 years after, I started to work as a dancer for two choreographers who used to be dancers in Bagué's company. And their work was very influenced by his work. I mean, it's very vast for me to start saying how this is influential in my work. Because then I should give a lecture on Dominique Bagué. But there's definitely an approach to movement, to the precision of movement, and to presence on stage. There's one thing I remember, like in an interview, Bagué saying that he was not interested in seeing dancers, but of seeing persons who dance. This doesn't mean that the dancers should not have a very solid technique, on the contrary. But this is something that is very interesting for me, and that I really relate to. And it's really not about self-expression. On the contrary, what is important to me is the kind of attention we give to the precision of movement, because that's what creates meaning, whatever that meaning is. And we don't need to try to add meaning to that, but let the dance speak. Then somatics, so I would say like somatic practices are not displayed in my work as such, but it became an integral part of what supports the work, and of what supports my approach to form, to executing a form, what is in that form. It's almost also a kind of toolbox, because maybe if I want to emphasize a certain movement quality in a dance, I might find a support in my somatic practices toolbox. So, for instance, in a dance, there is this like wow, swirling movement, rising and falling, I might find the support of my venous blood, for instance. Or how do I transfer my weight more efficiently so that my traveling in space looks more powerful and grounded. Then techno. I love to dance to techno. So I have a lot of years of practicing the dance floor in techno clubs and raves. It's something I came to it rather late in my life. At the beginning of my 30s, when I moved to Berlin, then I really started to dive into this. And in the last 15 years, it became even more present for me. I don't know why I love this music. And actually, maybe that's not the most important thing, why I love it, but it made me, dancing to techno became also, for me, an exploration of dance. And I don't think that I like dancing on the dance floor to techno. I don't think it's just like dancing around. I think it can be actually a very, very complex form of dance. So spending 15 hours in clubs became definitely a movement research for me. I work now also for 10 years with the same DJ and music producer, Fidel. And then through this collaboration, I started also to bring actually club dance on stage as a complex, elaborated form of dance that I put on the same level as other forms of dance that are considered more, high art forms of dance. But then I think that this practice of club dancing to techno entered the other dances I'm making. You might see some forms reminiscent of ballet, but that in my way of approaching this kind of form, there was this kind of momentum that was coming from club dancing to techno. Are we good? Legacy of light.